Welcome to Fear and Greed Q&A, where we ask and answer questions about business, investing, economics, politics, and more. I'm Natalie MacDonald, and today, what is universal childcare and how could it change Australian business? Recently, the federal government took the first step towards a universal childcare system, hiring Deloitte to work out what it would look like and how much it would cost. Georgie Dent is CEO of the Parenthood, Australia's leading parent advocacy organisation. Georgie, welcome to Fear and Greed Q&A.
Thank you so much for having me, Natalie.
Firstly, Georgie, I'd love to drill down into the jargon a little bit for those who may be out of their child rearing years or yet to arrive there. What do we mean when we talk about universal childcare?
So it's a really good question. And to be honest, there are various definitions of what a universal early childhood education and care system would look like. I suppose the way that at the Parenthood we would describe it is being more similar to schools or hospitals. So when you have a child who is of school age, you can enroll them in your local primary school and nobody will ask how much money you make, how often you work, what you do for a living. Your child will be entitled to participate in the school by virtue of them being a child in Australia. And moving towards a universal childcare system is really about saying this infrastructure, the ability for children to participate in high quality, affordable early education and care is critical. It doesn't mean it's compulsory. But when that piece of infrastructure isn't there, the choices and opportunities for children, for parents and communities are greatly diminished. And that's why it is, I have described it previously as sort of, the infrastructure project Australia needs more than anything else.
There have been comparisons made as far as the funding and the payment system goes with Canada. Is that, would the Canadian model be considered a gold standard? Is there a gold standard when we look at the various models and compare them with what we currently have?
So here in Australia, we have got a childcare subsidy that the federal government pays, and that's basically the amount of subsidy you get can range from sort of, 95% if you're on incredibly low income, but it can also be, as little as you might get 20% or 25% of the fee subsidised. At the Parenthood, we have been critical of the childcare subsidy as a funding mechanism for early education and care because it is really inefficient. The ACCC did a big report into early education and care that it published at the beginning of 2024, and they said the childcare subsidy has had limited effectiveness at putting any downward pressure on prices. So any early learning service is entitled to charge whatever fees they like. Now, what they tend to do is they're more often and more likely to set up in areas where parents have got a higher capacity to pay high out-of-pocket fees, because that's where it obviously becomes more viable and more profitable. And the childcare subsidy funding mechanism explains why then we've got parts of the country where it's harder for a provider to make a profit. So they're less likely to set up in an area where families have got fewer resources, less capacity to pay out-of-pocket fees. And so what the childcare subsidy has done is it's driven up the out-of-pocket costs for early education and care really considerably. So it has risen considerably faster than inflation for the last 5 years. It's also led to this situation we have where supply really does depend on your postcode. And the other big issue with the childcare subsidy in its current format is that it hasn't had any impact at driving quality. So we've had this situation where your ability to collect that subsidy has not been determined by, are you meeting all of the minimum standards? Are you investing appropriately in your staff? What does your professional development look like? What is your quality rating? So the funding has been quite disconnected from the out-of-pocket cost, from supply, from quality. And the argument that we've been making is, let's fund early childhood education and care service directly so that we can ensure services are being set up in every community where there are children who need it, that services are completely affordable for all families, and that the quality is the high standard we need for children to benefit.
And a lot of this does drill down into the heart of you have a sector that is largely privately held. Georgie, if I'm understanding right then, and without wanting to tangent too far, you're saying that a change in funding models could close the gap on issues around child safety as well. If we're looking at those minimum standards, obviously this is a topic that is so much in the parental discourse at the moment.
So look, there's two economic reasons for investing in early childhood education and care. One of them is the education and development of children. So we know that when children have the opportunity to participate in high quality early education and care before they start school, they're far more likely to arrive at school developmentally on track. We know that kids who have access to high quality early learning, over the course of their lives, they will enjoy improved outcomes on health, social, educational outcomes, and their economic trajectory. The 0 to 5 window is quite literally magically profound in the development of children. And so when you have high quality services and you get children having the option to participate before they start school, you quite literally secure our future prosperity and future productivity. The second reason to invest in early education and care is because it is critical infrastructure that enables parents to participate in the paid workforce. This is, of course, in the economic interests of individual households most of whom rely on paid work to feed, house, care for their children, to raise a family. But it's also good for the economy because the more that parents are working, the bigger the revenue pie is for the government. And they're the two sort of defining features that we believe a new funding model should ultimately be delivering on.
It speaks to how critical it is, the benefits of getting this right for business, for the economy, as well as, of course, family and children at the centre of that. As we've discussed, Labour commissioning Deloitte to launch a 2-year study of demand and costs. My sentiment would be that this is far too late to help families who are currently in those deep, dark depths of the cost of existing crisis. But from a tangible outcome perspective, are you hopeful of this leading somewhere?
So Deloitte has been asked to look at what does it actually cost to deliver high quality early education and care. And, you're right when you say, this maybe isn't fast enough for families right now. And it's not. I would have loved for this work to have been commissioned a decade ago. 2 decades ago would have been even better. But the main thing is this work is being done. And why this is critical is if we don't know what it costs to deliver quality early education and care, it's really difficult to be designing an effective funding model to achieve those objectives. But because we have got a highly fragmented system where we've got state-run preschools, we've got community-run early education care, we've got a lot of private provision of long day care, it means we don't have line of sight right now of exactly what it costs to deliver early education. And if we don't know what it costs, then we don't know the extent to which the funding model is or isn't delivering on the objectives it needs to be.
And to your point around the puzzle pieces that come together, I would concede that, of course, the government's changes to paid parental leave, also the changes to superannuation, definitely, if you zoom out, improve that overall picture. Georgie, thank you so much for talking to Fear and Greed and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for having me. I really appreciate it.